I want to first introduce Miss Erin Barker. She is a colleague of mine on the Employee Safety and Wellbeing team, and she really is the expert in movement, safe patient handling, and she leads a program called Wellness Wednesday on our team and really facilitates that, and then helps us, our safety team out, as well as pretty much every other program we have. So she offered her expertise with us all today to talk about different movements. So specifically, we're going to talk about the squat, hinge, and lunge movements. And then she's going to lead us through a short movement session where you can see how to use those movements in an actual movement session. So Erin, thank you for being here today. I'm going to let you take it away, and we'll mute myself and just be cheering from the background over here.
Awesome. Thanks, Mac. Thank you guys for having me tonight. I recognize that, after a long day, you're like, oh gosh, I can't imagine going and trying to learn something and decompress my brain. So I'm really excited to be able to do this session in particular because, when I think about functional movement, there's like 7 movements that are typically a part of every person's day, right? There's push and pull, and we squat and hinge and lunge, and a couple of rotational ones that we do all day long in all of our movements. They're very dynamic, right? Our bodies are made to do these things. And it's amazing to me how, from if you watch kids move, kids are really good at movement. And somewhere over the sands of time, we forget how to move effectively. And when we don't move correctly, all of a sudden we create poor movement patterns, and it makes doing things like things we normally do may be more challenging, as well as if we are starting a new workout routine or looking at influencing some exercise into our day, it makes it feel just a little more challenging because the movement doesn't feel natural. It's sometimes painful for people. And so I thought today I would break down 3 of my favorite movements. So the squat, the hinge, and the lunge, being that they're functional movements. We do them all the time, and really show you how not only can we do these movements correctly, and when we do them correctly, how effective they can be, but also then maybe give you some just quick tips on how to adjust your form and technique when you're doing these movements. And then we'll sprinkle them into what does it really look like to do a workout with these movements, or not even just a workout, even just any kind of physical activity. So if you're moving with me today, you're welcome to stand up. And if you're not moving with me today, totally fine. You can just watch me move and, move later, and that's totally cool too. So I want to just start by getting you in a comfortable position. So getting about hip width apart, feet are centered, your weight is kind of center of the gravity, and maybe just shift your weight back and forth to just feel how your body's moving today, tapping into that place. Now I want you to arch your back really hard. And now I want you to do the exact opposite and kind of tuck your pelvis way under. And then I want you to find somewhere in the middle. So that's what we call a neutral pelvis. So if you do this on the ground, it's really obvious because you'll get kind of a big space underneath your back, and then you'll kind of round up, and so your shoulders will come off. But that's what you think about a neutral pelvis. And women in particular, and I know there's a lot of ladies on this call, which is nice, we have the tendency to naturally sit with that rocked forward hip posture, right? That's really natural for many people to stand like that. And when you stand like that for a long time, especially when we're carrying kids and all these things, now all of a sudden muscles in the front become really tight, muscles in the back become really weak, and now doing all of these functional movements becomes a little bit more challenging. So we want to start by just getting in that neutral pelvis. So you think, it's not the pretty, like your butt's not going to look great in this posture, but it's definitely going to be more functional. Okay. So kind of squeeze your butt under, and it gives you kind of a flat butt, and that's okay, because that means your pelvis is working the right way. So we're just going to start with a nice little forward fold, but rather than bending at the pelvis, I want you to imagine that there is a rod running through your spine. Okay, so your spine is fused. You can even take, if you got a broomstick nearby, you can hold a broomstick on your back if that helps you think about this. And I want you to start to bend forward. And I want you to stop the moment that you have to bend your spine. So for some people, it may only be 45 degrees. For some people, if you've got hamstring flexibility, you may be able to get closer to that 90 in the hips. But I want you to stop there. And I want you to raise back up. Okay, so let's imagine that there's something on the ground. So I want you to go and act like you're going to pick up a pen that just fell on the ground, but you're not allowed to bend your spine, right? You're only allowed to go that far. So I want you to just go ahead and give it a try. So there's something down in front of you. You're going to bend down and you're going to stop, right? Because you're like, shoot, I can't get that thing on the ground, right? This is what we call a hinge. So a hip hinge. So rather than bending at your low back, which is what many of us have the tendency to do, right? Our pen's on the ground, we're just going to bend over like this, we're going to pick it up. Well, that's okay really if it's a pen, right? Because our lumbar spine is made for that mobility. But when we think about that thing being a 35-pound toddler or, a 50-pound brick that we're moving or some, even a couple of bags of groceries, that really weighs on you. I know I pick up cat litter sometimes and I'm like, who's going to bring that in my house? Because that is heavy, right? So the idea is we have to be able to modify this movement. So a technical hip hinge is exactly what we just did. Spine is in neutral, everything's locked in, and when your core is tight like that, now all of that pressure and weight doesn't go to the low back, right? So we're trying to protect our spine here. But it doesn't help us get to the ground. So here's where your squat comes in. So I want you to get a little bit wider this time, a little bit wider than hip width apart. And I want you to actually turn your toes out. So again, women, I'm going to pick on us a little bit, have the nice tendency that our hips like to be a little bit wider, right? Our toes pointing out feels more natural. I talk to people all the time and they're like, I got to have my knees facing forward, my toes forward. And for most people, they don't really have the flexibility for that and it's uncomfortable. So go ahead and just turn your toes out. Now, when we start to hinge forward at the waist, we're getting that ground. Now here's where our squat comes in. And I want you to think about sitting in a little chair behind you and you start to sink closer to the ground. And now, as you rise back up, here's the catch. When you bend down, you're not allowed to have your knees go in front of your toes. So what I mean by that is if you're bending down, and if you can see in my picture here, if your knee is coming over the front of your toe, now all of that weight that we just took away from our core and our center is going straight through our knee. So when I think about people that are starting a new exercise program and they're like, yeah, I'm doing all these squats, and I'm like, yeah, okay, and your knees are hurting or your back is hurting, right? Because our core isn't tight or our knees aren't tight. You're like, okay, well, that's great, but how do I do that safer? Okay. So if anybody's got a piece of paper handy nearby that they don't care about, or you can just imagine this if you've got a great imagination, imagine that you are going to rip a piece of paper perfectly in half, right? Because if you're like me, you're kind of OCD and you're like, it must be a perfect line. You fold it a bunch of times, right? And then everybody does this thing where they put it on a stable surface, right? And we rip it down the middle. Right? Is that how everybody can understand that? Same concept when you're squatting. So I want you to imagine that there is a piece of paper underneath your feet, and you are going to split it perfectly in half as you drop it to the ground. Does that make sense? So rather than your squat coming from here, which is where we have the tendency to put our squat, I want you to think about squatting from your glute. So if you were going to rip that piece of paper in half as you drop down low, now all that pressure is going to the outside of your thigh. Right? Does that make sense? So if we think, go ahead and you can take your hands on the outsides of your knees. This will be a good test. And go ahead and start to squeeze down low and don't let your hands break your knees and come back up. Yeah, so it's a little different. So the great way to try this is to get a chair behind you. I'm actually going to use this little bench here. And I want you to think about sitting as far back in that chair as you can get, right? Because we're not going to let our knees come over our toes. We're going to send our core is tight. We're bringing our chest up. Our hips are coming back. Our knees are behind the toes. Our center's there. We're squeezing our glutes out. Now we come down. So rather than plopping into that chair, which is what we have the tendency to do, we now can use grab a chair. Perfect. This would be a great example. Now you have the tendency to use your core and your glutes to make you do it. And a great one here, squeeze those outsides of those thighs, push, 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 and come back up. Yeah. I hope it feels different. I don't know if you guys are doing this with me, but if you haven't done a squat like this, it should feel different. Now all of a sudden you're squatting from here and not your quad. A really good way to practice. So if you are somebody that You're like, shoot, Erin, I can't find a way to get my weight back. So there's some key pointers I like to say to people. One is put your weight in your heels. So if you thought about sitting in that little tiny chair and you were going to lift your toes off the ground when you did it, it's kind of tough. So you think about rocking back into those heels, and you could feel a little unstable. So having a chair behind you is a great way to practice this. That's going to help you keep your weight in your heels. Now, when you do that, all of a sudden we forget about squeezing our glutes, right? Another great way to do this is to do this in a doorway. So if you think about getting in front of a door frame or a wall, and we're going to squat down, if you're someone that tries to cheat, you're going to hit that wall, right? I'm going to show you guys. Maybe I've got a door I can get in here. If you bear with me in my office space, I'll take you with me on an adventure so I can really show you. Okay, you guys are seeing my laundry room. Gosh, don't judge. But if you get into that door frame, right, so your knee is going to touch straight into the wall. Now, if you try to squat, if you're going forward, the wall is physically stopping you from going there. Does that make sense? So that's your homework. You got to do 5 good squats in a doorway so that you can see where that's at. Okay, so for again, some people that this is a new movement for them, we've got our hinge, nice. We've got our squat, and I only want you to go as low as where your breaking point is. So for some people, as they're starting in a new workout program or starting with new physical activity, it may only be a quarter squat, and that's where you can do good form, and that's where you should stop. If you're someone that's like, I'm gonna push through, then you're probably gonna get hurt, or you're gonna get injured, or you're gonna do something that's going to not make it feel good, and then you're not going to do it, right? And that's the whole point. We don't like to do things that don't feel good. So make it simple. Do some quarter squats. So everybody, if you're moving with us today, you've got 10 quarter squats right here just for fun. If you've got the range of motion and the ability to take it to a full squat, go for it. If you watch kids do this, they do such a great job. I have a little baby human at home, and Mr. Jace Barker can sit and play toys down here, no problem, right? So we're driving those heels out. We are pressing the outside of our room. We're keeping our chest up. And again, stopping with if a quarter squat feels good, you can get a great squeeze all the way through those muscles and staying centered. Couple more here. Already getting that heart rate up. Gosh, we haven't even started our workout. One more. Awesome. Okay, so the way to modify our next move is to add that lunge in, right? Because again, we talked about if a quarter squat's all we got, that doesn't help us get the heavy thing off the ground, right? If we go back to our first example of that pen that weighs 50 pounds. So hinge, squat, nice. Our lunge comes in right here. So you can take that big step back. Doesn't matter which leg, anyone. And a lot of people think about an inline lunge. You know, if you were like, I'm Googling lunges and people are going to do this for my workout, that's fine. An inline lunge is fine, but a wide lunge is way more comfortable and a way better place to start. So if you think about that carousel horse, you're the carousel horse. And rather than coming forward and shooting over the knee, right? Like you're Richard Simmons from the Sweating to the Oldies video, you're going to come straight down. Yeah, so it's different, right? It's different because historically we might have been doing a lunge like this, right, for our workout. That's a little bit more of a flexibility thing, and you're probably going to feel some tension and tightness in your knee. But if you come down in that lunge, now it's like our body is still doing a squat in that front knee, but we are doing it safer because now we have the range of motion, the mobility.
Hey, Erin, we just lost you. We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, lady.
It muted you for some reason.
Oh, I'm unmuted. I would say I got a little thing that said somebody wants to hear me not talk.
Thank you. Oh,
I think I'm unmuted again. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you
I
go.
don't know what it's doing. Okay. So go ahead and switch legs just to see what that feels like. So again, thinking about rather than coming forward with that weight, keep those knees behind the toes, right? We're all about good form here. And that's our lunge, right? So now you're getting something off the ground. You still have the ability to hinge here, so you can get that thing closer to you, bringing the thing that's heavy closer to the body. And now you can come flip it and you're in a squat. You can stay in the lunge, those kind, you always bring it closer to your body. Does anybody have questions before we jump into it? Are you guys sweating yet? Terry and Catherine, you guys are looking so good. Is this new for you? Have you moved like this before? You're a pro.
I have them on mute, so they might not be able to answer.
I got a thumbs up from Catherine. She gave me a thumbs up. Terry, how are you doing? Looking good. Okay, she's giving me a thumbs up. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes. So I think maybe we take 10 minutes and do a nice little movement session together, using these movements to really get our heart rates up, show you how they can be dynamic and work. So I'm going to find my timer because I'm a timer person. I love in as many reps as possible, slow and controlled and steady and all those things to really burn it out. And let's start with some squats. Nice and easy. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. So wherever your comfort level of squats is, we're going to go for 30 seconds. Nice and steady, just moving a little bit here. Nothing crazy, keeping the chest up, keeping the hips. We're really focusing on that good form, right? So we're driving those hips out, our weight's in the back of our heels. Keep going. We've got 5 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Let's stay in a squat and add a little pulse. Awesome. So we're staying down here, already feeling that burn. Send that weight to the back, right? We're getting a little tired. Woo-hoo-hoo. Feeling it. Squat, squat, squat. Halfway there. This is a perfect one for wine, Lisa. You can hold your glass. No problem at all. Stay there for 5, 4, 3.
Set it down, Erin, just so you know.
1. Come back up. Awesome. So we're going to give it 30 seconds of rest. So you can feel already, right? Heat's getting built. We're doing all the good things. I like to shake it out in between exercises, give myself a body to recover, so that way we can hit the next working effort even harder. All right. So we're going back to 30 seconds of squats. So nice and good. You got this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Maybe challenging yourself to get a little lower if that feels better now that your body does have some heat into it. Anytime that we can incorporate dynamic movements like the squat into a workout, into a movement, into something we do every day, like sitting on the toilet. I remember when I worked in the research department, I used to make them do 5 squats before they were allowed to pee. Something so simple, right? You're like, okay, what's a way that I can, because you're going to have to pee during the day. Last one. Okay, great. Go ahead and get into that lunge stance. Let's drop it down right here. So this is what we call split stand squats or a regular standing lunge. Remember, you're coming just like that carousel. So if it feels good to stay here, if you have the balance, you can take it to an inline lunge, or you can just stay steady and wide. I'm all for a wide base of support. It doesn't change the movement. It doesn't make it any less important. For 2, 1, we switch sides. Drop it low. Beautiful. Challenging yourself maybe to squeeze at the top if that feels good. If you do struggle with your balance, hold on to something. There is no harm in grabbing a chair or a wall or a desk next to you. The key is you're driving it up, squeezing the glute at the top. You got 10 seconds, and then we get another 30-second break. Whew. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and rest. All right, so our first round started with 2 exercises. Second round, we took it up to 3. You guys got where we're going here. We've got 4 exercises in our next round. We're almost halfway there. 15 more seconds of rest and recovery. Maybe you're starting to feel blood flow a little bit. I know I am. I'm already sweating. All those warm-up squats got us. All right, we're going back to our main squat here in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. You guys are looking so good. Thank you so much for showing up today. You know, it's doing the little things like, you know, sometimes I think that we have to get this whole workout in, right? It's 30 minutes. I have to be sweating. I have to be able to shower. And, you know, I think it's all about finding little ways to increase our movement. For 5, 4, we're going to stick to our squat pulse, but we're going to add a micro squat in the middle. All right, so we stay down, pulse, squat up, down, pulse, and up, driving through those glutes. It's when you start to fatigue that you'll notice where you try to cheat, right? When we get tired, we try to cheat more. Keep it going, keep that chest up. There's always ways that you can make this more intense, right? So if you want to hold on to some weights, maybe you take your hands up overhead. There's always ways to modify. We get into that split stance squat or lunge, drop it down. Here we go. One right side, one left side, and then we get a break. I love to incorporate these things when you're cooking dinner, right? You're doing, it's just small and intentional. Oh, I got time for 1 minute of right-sided squats here. Right-sided lunges for 2, 1. Go ahead and switch sides. Working up that sweat now. Breathing through, giving good oxygen to the body. I promise we'll get a cool down after this. You guys are gonna need it. Oh, 15 seconds. You're so close. And remember, this is your pace, right? So if you're like, I'm a speed demon, pick it up. If you're like, this is too fast for me, you can always slow it down. For 2, 1, 30-second rest. Look at that. We're getting close now. We've got 4 minutes to go. Super simple, super easy. We're just going to reverse it. So we're going right back into our squat. You're looking good. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So great opportunity. Again, you can add some weights. I always err on the side of you're welcome to take this into a jumping squat if that feels good for you. We're 5 minutes in. So if you're wanting to take it up, go ahead and do so. I have to be convinced sometimes, I think, to take things into more of a jumping thing, but that's only because I don't want to be breathing so hard on this mic today. All right, we go right into our lunge. Here we go. Let's change it up for this round. So this time you're going to come back to center. So this is going to challenge you. You're going to go 1 minute of alternating lunges, and I really want you to focus on coming back to center and then dropping straight over that back leg, right? So a lot of times I think when we think about a walking lunge, it's easier to get out of our good form, our form that we just worked on, and cheat. So don't cheat today. Take it a little slower if you need to. And really focus on keeping those knees behind the toes. You're doing so great. We got 20 seconds. It's nice and steady. Keep breathing. 10 seconds left to go. You guys are looking so good. For 4, 3, 2, 1, 30-second rest. We've got our final 2 exercises. And then you'll get a recovery, and we're done. Just like that, 10 minutes of work, right? 10 minutes getting that heart rate up. And anytime that we can incorporate those big movers, we're going to burn more calories, right? So when we are focusing on the glutes, the hamstrings, the quads, if we can make those stronger, we're going to naturally burn more muscle, or burn more fat. Drop it down. Let's do it. Building those up. It takes commitment. It takes time, but it's about doing the little things consistently that we see those changes. You're doing so good. This is our final minute of this working effort. We're going to end with our squat holds at the very bottom, just like where we started. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stay in that squat. Here it is. This is the burner, right? Right where we started. You're going to be more committed here. You're warmed up. You're a little tired. Your body's working. 20 seconds. You're pushing through that pulse. You have 15 seconds to go. That's it. 15 seconds, and then it's a recovery. And then it's a rest. For 10, 8, 6, for 4, 3, 2, 1. Rise up, just like that. Great job. Great job. Shake it out. Walk around a little bit. Go ahead and we're going to take some nice little stretches. I love a good quad stretch, especially after doing all those squats. Again, focusing on that neutral pelvis, bringing the quad back to neutral, lining them up, taking those deep breaths. I hope y'all are sweating as much as I am. And I'm going to leave you with a figure 4. Stretch out this last minute, whatever feels good. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope you guys learned some new tips and tricks for the squat, the hinge, and the lunge. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can send me a message. Mac, feel free to send my contact info out if anybody wants a follow-up, session with me, or if we can meet in person sometime and I can coach you. I'm always happy to do things like that. But thank you. You guys look great.
Yeah.
Catherine, are you dripping sweat? I'm dripping.
Terry, Catherine, you rocked it. I loved it.
Earn that wine.
Looks like you've killed Lisa. That's awesome.
I should have had a wine glass for afterwards too, Lisa. I really made a rookie move.
Seriously. When you get to be my age, you'll learn. I'll get you there.
Time.
Awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much, everyone. We did record this, so you'll get the recording if you want to do this routine again to get the burn going and review those movements that Erin went over. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you want to reach out to Erin, go ahead and just email us at theweightloschallenge@slhs.org if you have additional questions on the movements, and we'll get you in touch. So thanks so much. If you guys have questions, you're welcome to stay on afterwards, and I can answer those for you. Thanks.
And Mac, I think we're doing I'll be doing the webinar in April. So if you want to learn about different equipments and movements and stuff for at home or at anywhere workouts, you guys will get to see me again. I don't know if that's good or bad, but you might be like, oh, that girl's back again, or yes, make my quads burn.
Yeah, April will be super fun. We're going to cover nutrition in March with Chelsea. She's a dietitian at Lifestyle Medicine. And then Erin will be coming back in April to teach us how to keep moving at home with different equipment. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.